What's up, everybody? Welcome to the Father Son Fantasy Football Podcast. My name is Paul.
My name is Justin, and if you guys are new, please subscribe. We later in the season, it's playoff time, so we don't really
It's
put out very
playoff
much
time,
episodes.
Justin.
But
It's playoff time,
today,
baby.
today, well, for you in the listener league, dude. What place did you
That's the
finish?
only
No, no, no.
league I didn't make the
What place did you finish in the listener league? End of
uh,
regular season,
last.
last, dead last, right? 12 out of
But
12.
I did beat you in the
12,
listener
12
league.
out of 12, right?
Yes,
And then where did I finish?
but I beat you.
No, where did I finish though?
I beat you 2 weeks
But
ago.
where did I finish?
First.
Out of 12. And am I tied for first? Or am I in sole first place?
Doesn't matter.
Sole first place. So thank you for every
I
listener,
beat
every
you,
listener
so
we
it
had
doesn't
in
matter.
it. Thank
Right
you.
now, you're in the playoffs. You better hope to meet me again because you're 0-3 against me this year.
I will face you both twice times, but
You lost in every league. Every league, I beat you.
we each have some fantasy MVPs, fantasy playoff
Yes, you
MVPs
do.
on our teams.
We're gonna
And
go over them.
We're gonna talk about those. We had a special guest on the show. We had Brian Harr from the Trade Addicts podcast. Sam, by the way, you suck. I beat him. That's all I gotta say. Sam listens. So Sam, yeah, I said it. This isn't gonna come out until after the show we recorded tomorrow. But hey, Sam, yeah, that's what I'm talking about. We do like your boy Lindsey though, and that's a little spoiler. I think everyone in the industry is
I
down
love
on
Lindsey.
So Lindsey's gonna tear up in the playoffs, and we're talking about him. So without further ado, procrastination and whatnot, let's go get into this episode.
Let's get to it.
All right, and today we are joined by Brian Harr. You can find him on Twitter at BrianHarrFF. What's going on, Brian?
What's up, Brian?
Hey guys, how's it going?
It's
Going good.
It's going. We're getting to that playoff time of the year, weeks 14 to 16 for most leagues. So we're going to be talking about who our playoff MVPs are going to be. A certain amount of guys that just can go off in the playoffs. You saw last year, you had Todd Gurley on your team. You didn't lose. And then you had guys like Deion Lewis come out of nowhere who's starting up hot late last season and picked up in the playoffs. I think the only way you could beat Todd Gurley last year in the playoffs is if you had Deion Lewis. But even then, Todd Gurley gave people such an advantage. So we're going to be talking about guys that can hopefully give you the advantage or who to look out for, who's going to go off. And Dad, you mentioned someone that's a little bit of a surprise before we started recording. So why don't you take it away?
You want to go right into wide receivers? Is that what you want to do?
Well, it doesn't matter what position. You get any position you want. So you just give me your first guy. We'll do a couple guys each.
My first guy who could help people out a lot, especially because Deshaun Jackson is out now, is Chris Godwin. Even last week, he had 5 catches for 101 yards and a touchdown. So he's a guy I'd be looking to target, especially with Watson playing good now, or Deshaun Watson. Yep,
Deshaun Watson. No, James Winston. What?
No, I'm sorry, James Winston
We love
coming
it.
back in, and he's playing well. If he can just stop the turnovers, but I think Godwin's a guy you're looking at who can carry that team, carry your fantasy team into the playoffs, deeper into the playoffs.
Yeah, you go ahead, Brian. What do you want to touch on? Godwin.
Yeah, no, I like that one a lot too. So Chris Godwin's a guy that I've been on for a little while. He's actually if on our show we talk a lot about the Penn State guys because I'm a Penn State grad and live about 6 miles from Beaver Stadium. So Godwin's a guy that I got to see every Saturday of his college football career in person, and I was really excited about his prospects coming into the league. He's a big physical wide receiver, but he's got some speed to him too. It's a little deceptive. So far in the NFL, his main attribute has been catching touchdowns. He's been a big red zone threat for them. But with the injury to Jackson and him being out, Adam Humphries is going to run the slot there. But Godwin's going to be on the opposite side of Mike Evans, and I think he's going to have some favorable matchups here down the stretch, starting with this weekend against New Orleans. So yeah, I agree with that one. I like Godwin a lot, both for the fantasy playoffs this year and then also moving forward.
Yeah, and I believe Godwin's on like the crisp, depending on what your league scoring is, 24th or 25th ranked wide receiver overall. So he's on the cusp of being his first top 24 season, and first round matchup against New Orleans definitely helps out a lot. He's got Baltimore and then Dallas to finish it off. We're both playing really well against wide receivers, but I think, like you said, the touchdown's been his main thing since coming in the league, and James Winston likes throwing to him, even though originally it was thought that he didn't like throwing to him. But with Jackson out, you got Godwin and you got Humphries both playing well behind Evans. all I think viable starters come playoff time, all three. And then I'm gonna go second. So you mentioned Penn State guys. So Deshaun Hamilton, I think now with the Emmanuel Sanders injury out for the year, I think I was hyping him up in the offseason. I think he can step into a role where he can probably get some targets. And he's a guy that won't necessarily put numbers like the studs, but he's a guy who's on waiver wires everywhere, I believe, unless you have a diehard Penn State fan who picked him up and held one to his roster all year. Wasn't getting any like uses, but now he's gonna probably get usage due to Emmanuel Sanders being injured, and I can see him putting up high upside flex numbers come playoff time.
I looked already in a couple of my leagues as soon as the word come out, and people beat me to it. So people do listen, and they do jump on that waiver wire as soon as they hear something. There's no doubt about it. So if you're not quick enough, you're going to lose out.
That is true.
Yeah, and I like Hamilton as well. Another kid I had an opportunity to watch for 4 years up here. Yeah, I think especially with Sanders going down, there's a good chance he's going to have somewhat of a role. And at this point in the season, especially with all the injuries piling up across our fantasy teams too, not just in NFL, but for our squads. Sometimes you're just looking for a guy that's not going to put up a zero essentially. And Hamilton's a guy that, he should get some looks in that offense over the next couple of weeks. And I'm interested to see what he can do with them. He was a very solid contributor here. He's not overly athletically gifted, but he does make some pretty nice contested catches, which I don't know that they're going to ask him to do that because they have a stud on the other side in Cortland Sutton that excels at that. But I do think Hamilton's going to get get some looks here over the next couple of weeks, and I'm really interested to see what he can do with them.
Yeah. Opportunity is everything, and we haven't seen him that much at all this year. So it's going to be interesting to see now, especially with less people to get targets ahead of him now. So he's like in the number 2 or 3 with Tim Patrick, I believe, right? Yeah, That's his name. So interesting to see. So who is your first fantasy MVP, Brian?
Yeah, so I'm looking here at the Pittsburgh Steelers wide receivers. I think that both of these guys, Antonio Brown and especially Juju, these guys, James Conner just went down this past Sunday with an ankle injury or lower leg injury. They called it a contusion, but then it ended up being, I guess, a little bit more serious than that. He's probably going to miss this week for sure. Moving forward, I don't know, hopefully he can return week 15, but could end up being out that week as well. If he is, I mean, that's 2/3 of your playoffs. So, I think Pittsburgh, what that means for Pittsburgh is they're going to throw the ball 55 to 60 times a game. They have to win these games because they've lost the last 2. So they've got to win these games to stay ahead of Baltimore in that division, and they're going to do so by throwing the football. So I'm looking at Antonio Brown and Juju Smith-Schuster both getting between 10 and 15 targets in each of these last couple of games, especially while Connor's out. And I think those guys are guys that can definitely be league winners if you have those guys on your teams.
No, I agree. They're going to have to throw. They can't afford another loss. And with Connor being out, they have to throw the ball. And they got the weapons to do it. They just got to get it done.
This is
you
music.
got to give Big Ben time to throw that ball. That's all.
Yeah, I got Big Ben in 2 of my leagues, in 2 biggest leagues, and I got Antonio Brown in the 2nd biggest league, where I'm going against the arguably best team in the league. So I definitely need that stack this week, and I'm going to go ahead of you, Dad. My next fantasy MVP is Ben Roethlisberger. So we just talked about right there, they're going to have to throw the ball more, and then you go into factor that they had the 5th easiest playoff schedule for quarterbacks. They got Oakland this week, New England next week, and then the Saints week 16. So you get to that championship game, you're probably going to have a shootout. I don't think you're going to see the Saints offense play like they did against Dallas ever again. So in order to keep up with the Saints offense, they're going to have to score points. And Big Ben and Juju, that's all you really need. Just give them 15 targets each, and you probably have over 100 yards each and touchdown. So. But Big Ben's the 3rd-ranked quarterback so far this year, and people keep, denying it in their head. They don't really look at it and realize that. They always think it was just top 10, top 12, but he's actually 3rd this year, and he has the 5th easiest, like I just said, playoff schedule. So.
Well, and the crazy thing about Ben, too, is he's turned the ball over a ton.
Yeah.
I mean, he's 3rd overall with all of the interceptions included in that. So, that's part of his game. He's kind of like a gunslinger mentality. He throws it in tight spaces. So that comes with the territory. But, he's another one of these guys that if he can cut out the turnovers, I mean, you're looking at a guy again that can really sling it. And when he's doing it 55 times a game, chances are he's going to be somewhere up around 350 to 400 yards and probably throw a couple of scores. So I definitely like that one too.
Yeah, second in the league in interceptions behind Sam Darnold. He has 13, so gunslinger mentality for sure. All right, Dad, who's your next fantasy playoff MVP?
Well, since we're talking about quarterbacks, I'll stay right on the quarterback. So in our main league, it's a 2-quarterback league, and I think I got two of the best quarterbacks that are in the league, besides Mahomes and Breeze. But one of them is Rivers. He's not the guy I'm going to talk about because he's been consistent all year. I loved him from the start. But the other guy he got off to a slow start, just as he did last year, and started picking up in the second half, and that's Russell Wilson. I mean, what he's done in the last couple of weeks is he's had 4 touchdowns again this Sunday. That's the 5th time this year he's tossed at least 3 touchdowns while throwing under 250 yards. So he's picking up pace right now, and he could definitely win my league for me as the 5th seed. I really like my team right now going forward in the playoffs, especially with them 2 quarterbacks, and Russell Wilson would be a guy who, and he did it last year. Same thing. In the second half, he caught fire, and he's doing the same thing this year.
Yeah, he's got.
And Rivers is the other guy. I mean, he's been consistent almost every game.
Yeah, you have Seattle. They have Minnesota this week, who's arguably their hardest matchup in the playoffs, and then they got.
That's all right. I like what makes Wilson so good is he's able to scramble out of the pocket and find guys down the field. I mean, he runs, or he'll take off and run for yards.
Yeah,
so either way, I mean, moving forward, I think he's going to be good.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. So if you get past this first week, say you win, because Wilson's still going to put up points. Then you got San Fran, who they just played last week. They got them week 15, which is he went off against them, and then they got arguably the best matchup possible in Kansas City week 16. So if you make it to the championship, you got a guy who's going to be in a shootout last game. And
my 2 quarterbacks, can do it. I mean,
almost
you're going to need some help, but
almost as good
that's
as mine.
a good start.
Almost as good as my 2 quarterbacks. All right, here. Let's ask Brian. Brian, what duo is better? You got Phillip Rivers and Russell Wilson, or you got Mahomes and Big Ben? I think this is come
on. It's hard to go against Mahomes, really. I mean, the year he's having, but
yeah, he's actually he does not have a favorable playoff schedule, but
the worst one in the league
to matter
at
this point.
Yeah.
At this point,
well, he's got no fear. He fears nothing. He doesn't fear anything. That's what makes him so good.
You fear him.
I don't fear him.
Yeah, no, he's been unbelievable this season. 41 touchdowns.
Ooh,
I mean, and not throwing picks either. I mean, he's not turning it over. So, and he's kind of, he's you were just talking about Russell Wilson and him being able to extend plays by getting outside of the pocket with his feet. Mahomes, he's got the capability to do that too. So, I mean, he's the same type of player. He doesn't run as much as Wilson does, but he has that mobility in the pocket and to get outside of the pocket and keep his eyes down the field, which makes him so dangerous. They're unbelievable. Kansas City, I mean, we're not probably going to get into this, and nor do I want to, but the Kareem Hunt thing is really sad from a football perspective because that football team, I mean, that Monday night game against LA was one of the best football games I've ever watched. Yep. Or most entertaining. Let's say that. Maybe not the best football game defensively, but it was the most entertaining game I think I've ever watched, or one of them. So, that Kansas City offense is amazing. As far as those duos go, I mean, those are both really, really good quarterback duos. I think you guys are both set up to do. I guess I'm taking the cop out and not picking a duo, but you guys are both set up to do some damage, I think, with those 4 quarterbacks.
Yeah.
Well, Justin is on a 9-game winning streak, I think, right? Is that right? No, you lost this week.
I lost. I didn't have Melvin Gordon, but I was on a 9-game winning streak.
You won 8 in a row before that, but I think going in, I'm the hottest team right now. I won the last 3.
Nah, I'm
and
better.
I'm coming after you.
No, I don't have a chance.
and I'm coming after you.
I don't have a chance anymore because Sanders and Gordon are down. Otherwise,
don't say you don't have a chance. You're in the playoffs. Everyone has a chance.
I gotta go against.
Don't give up.
I gotta go against Breeze and Newton this week. It's not gonna be fun.
Give me all your players then if you're gonna give up.
Sounds good.
Slide them over. You can't give up. You just got to put a lineup in and see what happens.
I like that Russell Wilson pick. So, Brian, who's your next fantasy playoff MVP?
Yeah, so I'll also stay with a quarterback here, and mine's Cam Newton.
Oh, no, don't say that to me. I gotta go.
Yeah,
I
I heard you say that. I was like, oh boy. No, Carolina has the easiest schedule moving forward here in the playoffs for quarterbacks. Newton over his last 3 has been right around 350 total yards between his passing and his rushing numbers, and he's scored like 3 touchdowns each of the last 2 weeks. More than that, actually. It looks like 2 weeks ago. So, yeah, I think Cam. The nice thing about Cam is his floor is so high. You know, he's gonna get 60 yards rushing or 40 yards rushing. You know, if he scores a rushing touchdown, then right there you're already, you know, ahead of the game. I mean, you're talking about a running back too, along with a QB 1 to 2 depending on the week. So, and again, that schedule, he's got the Saints, the Falcons, well, it's actually the Browns this week, and then the Saints and the Falcons. Yeah. So that's a really, really nice schedule to finish out the fantasy playoffs. You know, he's starting to connect with Moore, the rookie wide receiver there. You know, Greg Olsen going down could hurt a little bit just in terms of a safety net, but I think, you know,
Samuels is picking it up too. So
yeah, he is, and he also has that safety net in McCaffrey. So. Yeah. You know, that doesn't concern me too much. But yeah, I think Cam is a guy that definitely is, you know, if he's on your rosters, you're definitely playing him. And he's a guy that I think can win some leagues.
I just don't like all the turnover. Like he had 4 interceptions this week.
Like the same
Last week he had a good week. What's that?
It's like the same thing with Jameis Winston. They both turn the ball over a lot, but in fantasy points, they make up for it via rushing.
They make up in the yardage.
So.
If you can keep the turnovers down, I mean, yeah,
with that style of play,
Brian said he's got an easy schedule moving forward.
Very easy. So
right, yeah, he did have 4 this past week. You're right, against the Bucks. But before that, he had 4 in the last 8 games.
7 on the year. So
it just depends on you know the day, I guess, for him. But yeah, if he can keep the turnovers down for sure, I like him even better. So.
Yeah. So, Dad, who's your third fantasy playoff MVP? We'll try to give one more after this each, to the 4 total.
You know,
you can say it. You can go for it.
I mean, he's been fantastic. He's an undrafted guy. You already know what I'm going to say.
I know. I was going to say the same. No one touched on him. I think everyone's favorite player right now. Are you one of the top?
And I got him on the same team, baby. Philip Lindsay, 19 carries, 157 yards, 2 touchdowns again. He also had a reception for 2 yards. That don't matter. But look what he's done the last couple of weeks. Everyone thought Freeman was the guy, just as I did in preseason. I hyped him up, and this guy just came out of nowhere and took that starting job, and he's running with it.
Literally.
I mean, he's fast. He's a bull. He's getting a job done. You got him on your team. I mean, what do you have this week? 40 points, 38 fantasy points.
Depends on the scoring in your league.
Right, but in our league,
points,
I mean, it was big.
Long touchdown bonus, yeah. And then he's got the easiest playoff schedule for running backs. He's got San Fran, Cleveland, and then Oakland. Yeah. So this guy's just, I don't know. If you have him,
I mean, you have him like Dad does.
Now Sanders is down, so you can see him maybe using both running backs more. I mean, I was watching a video on Twitter the other day, and it was saying how the Broncos draft class this year is just insane. When you think about it, they did.
It is, right.
They got Bradley Chubb, who's Von Miller obviously helps him out, but he's got 10 sacks in the year. You think he's 4.5 away from the rookie record. And then you got Cortland Sutton. Royce Freeman's pretty good, and then undrafted, you got Lindsey, and you got the offensive. I'm not gonna go to offensive line and defensive line, but good job to the Broncos.
No, he's just a good story too for a guy who didn't get drafted. I mean, it's fantastic. It's fantastic for football. It's fantastic for the guys out there who want a shot and don't get drafted. You know, there's still hope. Look at what he's doing.
And then, Brian, were you fortunate enough to have Lindsey on any of your fantasy teams?
I did, but I moved him kind of before he blew up. I moved him for a 2020 first in a league where I had some running back depth. So I'm kind of regretting that right now because I could use him in that league. I've had a couple of injuries. I have Gordon in that league, so it'd be nice to have Philip Lindsay to plug in there. But no, I agree with everything you guys said. I mean, you know, what an awesome story. And the kid runs hard. I mean, it's not, you know, he's little guy, but it's not like he's this scat back. He's going right in between the tackles, and he seems to know how to take care of his body too. Like he doesn't take that extra shot. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
He knows
Very
when to
smart
step out of
runner.
bounds. He knows when to, kind of just take the 2 yards and dive forward kind of low to the ground so he doesn't take that extra hit, which is important for a guy his size. So, but yeah, what he's done this year, I don't think anybody saw it coming. I will say, our buddy John Hogue, who writes, I think, for DLF, and he's on the Superflex Super Show. He was on Philip Lindsay in training camp. He saw something in camp, and he lives in Colorado, so he saw him in college as well, and thought that he could have a role. Now, I don't think he thought he could have this role, at the level he's produced, because he's been unbelievable. He really has. I think he's second in the league, rookie wise, in terms of rushing yards. So, it's unbelievable what he's done so far. And I think, I like him moving forward here too, in the fantasy playoffs for sure.
Yeah, I think that's great. We had Sam Lane on our show at FF Stompy. He was on Lindsay, and whenever he said him, I think I just saw him in the preseason game. I was like, okay, I kind of know who that guy is, but I did not expect it. I don't think anyone expected this big. I think people expected him to be maybe a factor in the NFL, but not the first year running away from Royce Freeman like that. Like, wow.
I'm glad I got him on my team. I'm glad I got him.
I'm glad we got him in Dynasty. That's the more important place.
Yeah.
So,
there you go.
Yes.
And Brian, who's your third fantasy playoff MVP?
Yeah, my third fantasy playoff MVP is going to be Nick Chubb, the running back for the Browns. Really like what this kid has done since he's taken the reins there in Cleveland. He scored a touchdown each of the last 4 weeks. But what I like even more is over the last 3 weeks, he's gotten involved in the passing game as well. Surprisingly, he's caught 3 passes each of the last 3 weeks for over 100 yards. So 9 catches for over 100 yards and 2 receiving touchdowns, which is production that I would not expect to get out of Nick Chubb. I don't think he was as bad of a pass catcher coming out of school as a lot of people thought he was, but I didn't really expect him to kind of do that. I thought he was going to be more like an AP earlier in his career, or like mid-career, where he catches 25, maybe 30 passes. He's caught 9 over the last 3 weeks. So, I mean, and the touchdowns, he's scored at least 1 touchdown in each of the last 4 games. And he scored multiple touchdowns in 2 of those 4 games. So I think Chubb's a guy, I think they also have a favorable schedule as well. Coming up here in the fantasy playoffs, I think top 10 schedule anyways. I think they're 9th overall as far as toughest schedule moving forward here. But yeah, Nick Chubb's a guy that I think can carry some teams this year. And it's a nice boost because I think early in the year, people were not sure what was going to happen there in Cleveland. So if you had him rostered, it was kind of like, well, I might not get anything out of this guy this year. Now moving forward, I think everybody was looking ahead and thinking, yeah, he's probably going to be a pretty good producer moving forward. But, for this season, it was kind of up in the air. But then when they traded Hyde to Jacksonville, I mean, Chubb stepped in there and just took that job by the reins, and he's been beast mode pretty much since. So I really like Nick Chubb here these next 3 weeks, and then again also moving forward.
And touching on that, Brian, like you just said that on the other side in Seattle, we thought Penny, when he was in there one game, he did well. The next game they didn't use him.
We know Penny's good. Pete Carroll doesn't know Penny's good.
I understand,
That's
but I'm just saying that's the opposite of what Brian was just saying, how Chubbs got in there and took off.
Fair enough.
And here you think Penny would do the same thing, and then they sit him, which is a coaching thing, but I don't understand that scenario at all.
Hugh Jackson's not smart. Pete Carroll's not smart. Mike McCarthy's not smart. I think they're all going to start following. I don't know. But Chubb, the only reason why I think he's in contention for Rookie of the Year or Offensive Rookie of the Year is because he didn't play since the start of the season, I guess. So 131 carries, 694 rushing yards, 7 touchdowns, 19 targets, 12 receptions, 131 yards, and 2 touchdowns. And then according to PFF, Chubb has the highest overall grade at running back that's greater than 250 snaps, only behind Melvin Gordon for rushing grade. So he has the highest overall grade, but he's only behind Melvin Gordon for rushing grade. So this guy just going off. I know my dad and I drafted Chubb 5th overall. He thought it was, right, Dad? in the
Yes,
Dynasty League.
we had the 5th pick.
No, I didn't expect to get anything at all out of him this year at all. I thought
No, we thought he'd be a star next year, but he's going to be even better next year because we already see what he can do this year. So that was a good pick.
Yeah, so definitely.
sure.
And then he's got that Cincinnati matchup week 16. So if you make it to week 16, and you have Lindsey, I don't know how you lose at that point. I mean, matchups and then talent, and then they're also feeding the ball a lot. So I like that. And then my next fantasy football MVP, this playoff MVP. I'm gonna pull a LeVar Ball here, Dad, and I'm gonna have to speak it into existence. So Zay Jones. Zay Jones has to happen.
You're gonna go with Zay Jones?
It has to happen, Dad. Okay, I gotta speak it into existence. I need this to happen. So Zay Jones is now the clear-cut number 1 wide receiver to Josh Allen. And if I said this to myself before the season started, I would have laughed at myself. But Josh Allen's been playing well. I don't know how, but he is. He's not accurate, but
he was the number 2 quarterback last week.
Yeah, he rushes the ball way better.
And Zay Jones was the number 4 wide receiver.
I'm gonna need that to come back this week against the Jets. The Jets are not that good against wide receivers. So I'm hoping Josh Allen can all I need is one deep ball. That's all I need. And I can see him continuing this like little tiny streak because Josh Allen just likes to throw the ball and he can throw the ball far. And I think Zay Jones. I don't know if defense is really focusing on Zay Jones. I think they're mainly focused on the running attack, even though it's not really there. But I'm hoping that Zay Jones can get loose for a touchdown in each of these games. He seems to be scoring. He scored 2 touchdowns last week. So this week he's going against the worst defense. I'm hoping for at least 20 fantasy points. It's a lot, but I can see it. He's had 11.35 his last 2 games with Josh Allen. He's averaged 5 targets per game with Josh Allen. So I'm hoping that gets to around 7 or more targets a game just because Calvin Benjamin's gone. We'll have to wait and see, but I think it's a high upside flex play, especially in week 14 against the Jets. So
I got no problem with that.
I don't either.
Hey, and they got Detroit week 2. We have week 2 of the playoffs. So week 15, they got Detroit, and then they got New England. So I'm hoping. I'm speaking it into existence. It's happening. Zay Jones is going to be a top 20.
Talking about Detroit, they really fell apart.
Yeah. They Did. I don't know what happened. I think it's Matt Patricia, but I don't know. I'm not that good at telling this stuff. But we do know Zay Jones, top 20 wide receiver. Now, I would say top 15 wide receiver playoff for the next 3 weeks. That's what we're going to happen. Top 15 for the next 3 weeks. Zay Jones. Watch out, Dad.
Well, he was the number 4 last week. Devontae Pettis was the number 1. Now, these are all big surprises, right? Justin Jackson was the running back 10 last week. The past 2 weeks, he's had 120 yards on 15 carries, which is nobody thought that he would be the top guy there. Tariq Cohen, he had a bounce back week. He was the number 3 running back. The biggest disappointments, and if you got these guys on your playoff roster, I mean, they're studs. They're going to bounce back. But the biggest disappointment was Jared Goff, right? He was the quarterback, 27. He had a terrible week. Austin Eckler, who everyone thought he would take over, he was, I think, the running back 48. Did not have a good week. Kamara, right? Running back 36 last week.
Dad.
I know.
That's just,
Julio Jones was the 89th wide receiver last week.
I don't want to talk about that.
Michael Thomas, the Saints didn't have a good week, but he was wide receiver 61.
Ooh.
And Tyreek Hill, coming from that explosive offense, was the 52nd wide receiver. So those are just big surprises and biggest disappointments of the week. But if you got any of them guys on the disappointment list, they'll bounce back. You're still starting them every week. You're not sitting on any of them guys.
I have Julio
but it happens, right? Like we said before.
Yeah, I have Julio and Michael Thomas in the league, and
I
I needed to win last week. It didn't happen. Not with those numbers. So yeah, definitely not. Dad, who's your last and final? What was you say, Brian?
No, I'm good.
All right, Dad. Who's your last and final fantasy playoff MVP?
I'm going to ride this guy to the championship, even though they lost Andy Dalton. But Tyler Boyd. Tyler Boyd is going to be my guy. With Green out again for the rest of the year, they're going to have to rely on Boyd. I mean, he had 6 receptions for 97 yards, and he's had a couple big games. So another guy I'm going to ride to the end because I'm going to win that league.
With Jeff Drixel? No, he's got a good matchup.
Like I said, with the quarterback change, they got to throw to somebody. So with AJ Green out, hopefully they throw to Boyd and he keeps putting up good numbers.
Yeah, not the best schedule. They got Chargers, Oakland, and then Cleveland. But targets, I think you're right that they got to go somewhere.
So they're going to be behind in 2 of those 3 games. So they're going to have to throw.
It's Jeff Drixel. It's so weird to say it. Like the starting quarterbacks we have right now: Mark Sanchez, Jeff Drixel. What's going on in the NFL? I don't.
Hey, people are getting hurt. What are you gonna do?
You like that pick of Tyler Boyd, Brian?
Yeah, I like Boyd. I think he's definitely going to see the majority of the targets there for sure. Obviously he's going to be matched up with the top guys across from him now too. But they've been pretty creative keeping him out in the, keeping him in the slot or at least running him some routes in the slot, which is where he's really, really excelled this year. So I could see them. I think that now the biggest concern for me is he got banged up a little bit this weekend too. Yeah. I actually haven't heard on that whether he's okay. I don't think he was on the injury report, was he? Or is he probable or
I'm checking right now.
But anyways, I think I like Boyd a lot. He's a kid that, just took him a little longer to break out than some of the other guys in that class. And he's been really reliable there. And he's had an unbelievable year. So I definitely think he'll continue to do that moving forward here.
Yeah, I don't think that's an report anymore.
Don't laugh at the quarterback situation, Justin. Look at Washington's situation.
What I was saying, Mark Sanchez.
You got Sanchez starting over there. Okay, Sanchez. Okay, what do you think they're going to do the rest of the year?
The bad thing is, what are you going to say, Brian? I
was just going to say, I think Driscoll. I mean, I think Driscoll can. I mean, he's not. So my thing there is Andy Dalton, for me, has never been really that good. I don't think Andy Dalton's that good. So the drop off to Jeff Driscoll, I really don't know what it is yet. I mean, he can't be, even if he's like not real great, I think he'll at least be serviceable as a fantasy quarterback throwing to other offensive weapons in that system. I mean, we just have limited, we've only seen him once. So it's hard to really nail down what he's capable of. But I mean, he had a successful college career at Florida, so I mean, I think he's at least serviceable. And I don't think that, I think Tyler Boyd is going to be the guy that he just peppers with targets over these next couple of weeks too. So, and they're going to be playing from behind, so they're going to throw it a bunch as well.
Yeah. So targets are targets, and hopefully you can get some points out of that one. So who's your final fantasy playoff MVP, Brian?
Yeah. So this one for me, I look at matchups a lot. When it comes to this stuff, but this one here, I don't really even care about the matchup. If you have Saquon Barkley on your squad, you have a really good chance at winning your league. I mean, this kid is just ridiculous. If you've heard me on the show, on our show, or if you've seen me on Twitter, I mean, I'm a big Saquon Barkley guy. Again, graduated from Penn State, all that fun stuff. So call me a homer if you like. I really don't care. The kid is special. He's unbelievable. When you're looking at his fantasy production, especially over the course of this season, in standard PPR leagues, he's literally had 2 games where he hasn't scored 20 points or more fantasy-wise. 2 games. So he's been over 20 fantasy points in all but 2 games. And in those games, he was at 14 and 17 and a half. So still, solid fantasy days, not elite days, but still solid production. His schedule is not favorable moving forward here, but it wasn't favorable last week either. For the game with the Chicago Bears, and he absolutely tore them apart. So I really don't care who he's playing. Saquon Barkley is unbelievably talented. He's 21 years old. He's got legs the size of tree trunks, and he's fast as all heck too. So I think if you have Barkley on your squads, you're giving yourself a really, really good chance at winning.
We love the homer pick.
Yep,
We're Giants fans, so
I agree.
I love that, and I think matchup proof. He's had a hard schedule all season long, and it doesn't really stop him. And my only question is, if he was on, say, Dallas behind their offensive line, which isn't even doing that great this year, would he have over 1,600 rushing yards already? Do you think they would or not? That's a question I was talking to my friends about today. I was like, if Saquon Barkley had an offensive line, how good would he be? Like, how many yards would you think? I think he could easily break 2,000 rushing yards his first year if he had a good offensive line. because you can't tackle the guy.
It's hard to tell. I mean,
You can't tackle the guy
no, they can't. I mean, look how many tackles he breaks, and he just keeps going
before the line of
and
scrimmage
he's
too.
just
It's
like
just-
Elliott and all them other guys. Gurley, they're patient in the backfield. They wait to see that hold. They don't just take the ball and go. So that's a big difference. If you can do that and you have the speed, it's unlimited what you can do. But if he had a better offensive line, would he be better? Well, absolutely. But he's having a great rookie season.
And the best,
we love that.
Yeah, and the best thing about Barkley too, from my point of view, is this is a kid that wants to be the best in the game, and he's really driven to be that. So the thing about he's not that's one thing, Paul, he's not as patient as those guys, and I think sometimes it would serve him well to be a little more patient hitting the hole, but he can learn to do that. This is his rookie season, and he's already, I mean, his athletic talent is what is sustaining his unbelievable success right now. He's physically, he's just a freak. I mean, he's just amazingly gifted physically. But the mental part of the game, that's going to come. And if it comes in the next 2-3 years, which if you're talking about normal progression, it probably should, right? He's going to learn some things these next couple of years and in the off season and through another training camp and all that stuff. I think once he learns, once he learns to be more patient and to take 4-yard gains instead of 2-yard losses, I think he's going to become one of the most complete backs we've seen in the league. So, and his floor is so unbelievably high because of the pass catching out of the backfield. I mean, his receiving skills are elite as far as running backs are concerned. I mean, the only guys, you're putting him up there with guys like DJ and Lev Bell, Melvin Gordon, from a pass catching perspective, Alvin Kamara. He's almost a complete player, and the things that he has left to work on are things that are going to just shoot him up even higher into a tier where, he's going to be in a tier by himself if he can learn to do some of these things, be patient and take what the defense gives you sometimes instead of trying to make the splash play. So,
yeah,
sky's the limit for that kid.
100%. And I think it's definitely a chance to be the greatest of all time at running back. I think an offensive line is the best priority for the Giants, hopefully, but we'll see. Other than a quarterback, but what are you gonna do?
He had a great time at Penn State too, because they didn't have a great offensive line when he was there either.
No, they really didn't.
In college, this dude was it's just fun to watch.
Yeah,
definitely.
A lot of guys say the Giants should have taken a quarterback. Look, they took the best guy in the draft. They'll build off of this. They made the right move, in my opinion.
They just got to fix the offensive line. I think would be good. But
well, yeah, I mean,
yeah. All right, I'm gonna get
that'll come.
my last fantasy playoff MVP, and that's gonna be Gus Edwards. He's gotten 20 plus carries the last 3 games, and then he's got the Chiefs this first week, and he's not in the injury report anymore. And then he follows that up with Tampa Bay and the Chargers, both 3 teams that have been subpar against the run. And if Lamar Jackson keeps getting the start, which I guess is up in the air, I don't know if he got announced to be a starter this week yet. I know Flacco's coming back. But if
I don't think Flacco's. I don't think starting this week.
Not, all right. Well, in that case, then fire up.
I don't think so.
I fire up Gus Edwards, especially as a waiver wire pickup. I just put him in there and just don't look back because he's gonna get the carries and he seems to be doing pretty well in that offense. I know Kenneth Dixon is just getting implemented back, but it doesn't really matter to me because I think Gus Edwards is gonna find pay dirt this week.
Basically, you're saying I'm gonna win the main league because not only do I have Russell Wilson, not only do I have Phillip Rivers, not only do I have Phillip Lindsay, but I also have your man Edwards.
Yeah, but Zay Jones is going to put up like 50 a week. So.
Zay Jones is going to put up a 50 week game. When you have these bonus points for long touchdowns and stuff, Mahomes, I was going to say Mahomes is the fantasy MVP, but just Mahomes is going to put up like 40 a week in this.
Well, everybody, that's the guy everybody's. If you got him, he's going to get you your points.
But yeah, Zay Jones.
Zay Jones. I forgot.
I'm speaking into existence. It's gonna happen, and then when it happens, you're gonna call me dad and be like, "Wow, Justin, you were right. You called Zay Jones being the top 15 wide receiver for the playoffs."
I had him in one league for like a week or 2, and I dropped him.
And now Josh Allen's on a stroll.
Yeah, Josh Allen is. He's better than he was.
I don't know what's going. I don't even know. That's gonna do it for our fantasy playoff MVP episode today. Big thank you to Brian for coming on the show. And
Yes, thank you, Brian.
Yeah, guys, thanks for having me. I really appreciate it.
So where can people find you, and what do you do in the fantasy community for people who don't know you?
Sure, yeah. You can find me on Twitter at Brian Harr FF. That's BrianHarrFF. And I am a writer and contributor for DynastyLeagueFootball.com, DLF. I do the 2QB and Superflex rankings over there. I'm one of several guys that do that. And then also the at Trade Addicts pod. The Trade Addicts podcast, which is part of the DLF family of podcasts. Myself and at Dynasty Outhouse do that show. Russ is a great guy, and if you're not following him, go do that as well. We have a great time doing the show, and we got to see about getting both of you guys on that sometime here soon.
We'd be down to. Always down to do guests.
That'd be awesome. That'd be awesome.
Awesome.
Yeah, so I'll have that in the description below, your Twitter, so people can go to that and just find you there. Make sure you go follow Brian and the podcast he does, and go check that out. Trade Podcast. It's a good podcast. I know Sam goes on it, so yeah.
Sam. He's been on twice now, and the second time I think he just told us he was coming on, basically. So that's Stompy for you. But no, we love Sam. He's a good friend of ours, and but yeah, no, come check us out at Trade Addicts Pod. And again, guys, really appreciate you having me on.
All right, that's gonna do it for today's episode. We also affiliate with thequantedge.com, so if you guys are tired of losing to sports bettors and pros and all that, just listen up. You got all these tools on the site. And you can go over to thequantedge.com. Use promo code FSFF. This late in the season, so there's still the sports betting and stuff up, and they got a betting tool now. So if people like to bet money and get the edge, you can definitely go to use that. They also have premium access to the industry experts podcast. You get articles and you get the chat. The chat's huge. DFS time, big on DFS. You win money, and also in the playoffs coming up. DFS in the playoffs is big too. It's pretty fun too with the, I guess, higher reward games. So make sure you guys go check that out over at thequantedge.com. Use promo code FSFF to save today. And Dad,
that's right.
If my dad and we're not facing each other first round of the playoffs in 2 leagues that we're in. But if I win and he wins, we got that semifinals matchup. And I'm gonna lose from both of them because my team's hurt. But it's okay. I can hope. Zay Jones.
You haven't beat me yet this year, in case you're wondering.
Zay Jones is gonna beat you, bro. Everyone better watch out.
I beat you in every league. I crushed you.
Zay Jones.
That's right. Crushed. Zay Jones. You. We'll see what Zay Jones does this week.
We'll see. Hopefully good. If you guys also are new and you're still here, please hit the subscribe button. You can follow me on Twitter at JustinFSFF. And yeah, we'll see you next time.
See ya.